Years passed, and the bond between Earth and the Zenari grew stronger. Humanity's role in defeating the Void became a turning point not just for their own planet, but for the entire galaxy. Stories of Ethan and Lily's bravery spread across star systems, inspiring other species to reconsider their views on cooperation and resilience. What had once been seen as humanity's weaknesses, imperfection, emotion, and adaptability, were now celebrated as strengths. Ethan continued to work closely with engineers, helping design ships capable of exploring deeper into space. His knack for improvisation earned him respect among both humans and aliens, who often turned to him when traditional methods failed. "Sometimes you need chaos to spark innovation," he would say with a grin, echoing words he'd spoken years ago aboard the Aegis Asterisk. Lily, meanwhile, became a leading figure in interstellar diplomacy. Her ability to bridge cultural gaps made her invaluable in negotiations, especially when tensions arose between different species. She traveled frequently, meeting leaders from planets light years away, always carrying with her the lessons she'd learned about hope and perseverance. "We're all connected," she often reminded others. "Our differences make us stronger, not weaker." Back on Earth, life transformed in ways no one could have imagined. Cities expanded upward instead of outward, powered by clean energy systems adapted from Zenari technology. Education programs emphasized creativity and problem-solving, encouraging children to think beyond boundaries. Art flourished as human creators collaborated with alien musicians, painters, and storytellers, blending traditions into something entirely new. But perhaps the greatest change was in how people viewed themselves. No longer did they see Earth as a small, insignificant speck in the vastness of space. Instead, they looked to the stars with pride, knowing they had earned their place among them. The insults once hurled by the Zenari seemed like ancient history now, a reminder of how far they'd come. One evening, Ethan and Lily stood together on a balcony overlooking New Chicago. The city sparkled below, its lights reflecting off the sleek towers that reached toward the sky. Above them, streaks of starships crisscrossed the heavens, carrying explorers, traders, and diplomats to distant worlds. It was a sight neither of them could have dreamed of during their childhoods. "You know," Ethan said softly, breaking the silence, "I used to think we were too weak to matter, that nothing we did could ever compare to what the rest of the universe was doing." "And now?" Lily asked, glancing at him with a knowing smile. "Now I know we're exactly what the universe needed," Ethan replied. "Not because we're perfect, but because we're willing to try, to fail, to keep going anyway." Lily nodded, her gaze drifting upward. "Do you think Dad would be proud?" Ethan smiled, his eyes misting slightly. "Yeah, he'd probably tell us to stop showing off so much." They laughed quietly, the sound mingling with the hum of the city below. For a moment, they simply stood there, soaking in the beauty of what they'd helped create. Humanity wasn't defined by its mistakes or its struggles. It was defined by its refusal to give up. As the years went on, Ethan and Lily remained symbols of hope, not just for Earth but for countless other worlds. Their story inspired generations to dream bigger, reach farther, and believe in the power of unity. Even Cal Vorn acknowledged their impact, calling them beacons of resilience during a speech commemorating the Alliance's anniversary. In time, humanity's legacy stretched far beyond its solar system. Explorers carried Earth's flag to uncharted territories, leaving behind traces of their culture wherever they went. Artists painted murals of Ethan and Lily on alien planets, and songs celebrating their courage echoed through galaxies. When Ethan finally retired, he spent his days writing about his experiences, ensuring the lessons of the Void would never be forgotten. Lily dedicated herself to mentoring young diplomats, passing on the wisdom she gained over decades of service. Together, they watched as humanity took its rightful place among the stars, not as conquerors or rulers, but as partners and pioneers. And though the universe was vast and full of mysteries, one thing was certain: humanity's journey had only just begun. Weeks turned into months, and life on Earth began to change in ways no one could have predicted. The alliance with the Zenari opened doors that had once seemed impossible to unlock. Scientists worked side by side with alien experts, sharing knowledge and technology that transformed industries overnight. New energy sources replaced outdated methods, curing power shortages in regions that had struggled for decades. Medical breakthroughs saved lives, and advancements in space travel made it possible for humans to explore farther than ever before. Ethan and Lily became symbols of this new era, their faces appearing on news broadcasts, magazines, and even murals painted on city walls. Yet despite their fame, they remained grounded, continuing to focus on the work that mattered most. Ethan spent his days helping engineers adapt Zenari designs for human use, while Lily collaborated with linguists and diplomats to strengthen communication between Earth and its cosmic neighbors. But not everyone was happy about the changes. Some people feared losing their identity in the rush to embrace alien influence. Protests broke out in cities around the world, with demonstrators holding signs that read, "Stay human" or "Earth first." Critics argued that relying too much on Zenari technology would weaken humanity's independence. "It's not about replacing who we are," Ethan explained during an interview. "It's about becoming better versions of ourselves. We're still human. We always will be." Lily echoed his thoughts during a speech at a global summit. "The Zenari didn't save us," she said firmly. "We saved each other. That's what partnership means, working together without losing sight of who you are." Despite the challenges, progress continued. Schools introduced programs focused on interstellar diplomacy, teaching children about the importance of cooperation and understanding. Artists drew inspiration from alien cultures, creating music, paintings, and stories that celebrated diversity. Even small towns held festivals honoring the alliance, blending Earth traditions with galactic themes. One evening, as Ethan walked through New Chicago, he noticed how much the city had changed. Once dilapidated buildings now gleamed with fresh coats of paint, powered by clean energy systems. Streets were filled with people of all ages, laughing and talking as holographic displays showcased images of distant planets and starships. It was a far cry from the grimy, divided place he'd grown up in. At home, Ethan found Lily curled up on the couch, reading reports about ongoing projects. She looked up when he entered, her face lighting up with a smile. "How was your walk?" "Different," Ethan replied, sitting beside her. "Everything feels brighter somehow, like we've been given a second chance." Lily nodded thoughtfully. "Do you think we'll mess it up?" "Humans aren't exactly known for making smart decisions. We might stumble," Ethan admitted. "But I don't think we'll fall. Not anymore. Look at what we've already done." Their conversation shifted to plans for the future. Cal Vorn had invited them back aboard Asterisk, the Aegis Asterisk, to help establish permanent ties between Earth and the Zenari Empire. While both siblings were excited, they also felt a pang of nostalgia knowing they'd leave behind the planet they loved. Later that night, Ethan stood on the balcony, staring up at the stars. He thought about the void and how close they'd come to losing everything. More than anything, he thought about hope, the same hope that had driven him to face the darkness head-on. It wasn't just a feeling, it was a choice, and humanity had chosen to rise. The next morning, as they prepared to board the ship, Ethan and Lily took one last look at Earth. The blue-green orb shimmered against the blackness of space, beautiful and fragile, yet undeniably strong. They weren't leaving forever. They were stepping forward, carrying their world with them into the unknown. As Asterisk, the Aegis Asterisk, lifted off, Ethan felt a sense of peace settle over him. Humanity wasn't perfect, but perfection wasn't the goal. What mattered was the journey, the courage to keep moving forward, no matter the odds. And for the first time in history, the universe believed in them too. The moment Ethan stepped off Asterisk, the Aegis Asterisk, the roar of the crowd hit him like a wave. Thousands of people had gathered at the landing site, their cheers echoing across the open field. Children waved homemade banners with messages like "Heroes of Earth" and "Thank you," while adults clapped and whistled, tears streaming down their faces. Cameras flashed nonstop, capturing every step as Ethan, Lily, and the Zanari crew made their way to a raised platform set up for the occasion. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt truly seen. Not as an ordinary engineer from New Chicago, but as someone who had made a difference. Beside him, Lily looked equally overwhelmed, her cheeks flushed as she waved to the crowd. Cal Vorn stood tall and composed, his silver skin gleaming under the bright lights. Though he didn't smile, his presence commanded respect, and when he began to speak, the crowd fell silent. Today marks a new chapter not only for humanity, but for all species in the galaxy, Cal said, his deep voice carrying over the sea of people. Through courage and ingenuity, humans have proven themselves worthy allies. The void threatened to destroy us all, yet it was your adaptability and resilience that saved us. Applause erupted again, louder than before. Ethan glanced at Lily, who was beaming with pride. He couldn't help but feel a swell of emotion himself. For so long, humanity had been told they were weak, insignificant, and unworthy. Now, standing here beside one of the most powerful alien leaders in existence, Ethan realized how wrong those judgments had been. After Cal finished speaking, it was Ethan's turn to address the crowd. He stepped up to the microphone, feeling nervous but determined. "We didn't do this alone," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "It wasn't just about technology or strength. It was about working together, believing in each other, and refusing to give up. Humanity has always dreamed of reaching the stars, and now we're finally taking our place among them." The cheers grew deafening, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Lily joined Ethan on stage, holding up the tablet containing the data they'd collected during the mission. "This is just the beginning," she added. "With what we've learned, we can build a better future, not just for Earth, but for everyone." As the ceremony continued, reporters swarmed the siblings, firing questions faster than they could answer. "What was it like facing the void?" one asked. "How did you feel when the Zanari came to Earth?" Another pressed. Ethan answered honestly, sharing stories of fear, hope, and teamwork. Each word seemed to resonate deeply with the audience, many of whom wiped away tears as they listened. Later that evening, after the crowds dispersed and the media frenzy died down, Ethan and Lily found themselves sitting quietly in their old apartment. It felt surreal to return to such familiar surroundings after everything they'd experienced. The cracked windows still let in a draft, and the flickering light above the table hadn't been fixed, but somehow it all felt comforting. "You know," Lily said softly, breaking the silence, "I never thought I'd see the day when aliens would call us heroes." Ethan chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "Me neither. But maybe that's the point. We weren't supposed to win. We weren't supposed to matter. And yet here we are." Lily nodded, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. "Do you think people will change? I mean, really change?" "I think they already have," Ethan replied. "Back there, when everyone was cheering, they weren't just celebrating us. They were celebrating the idea that we're capable of more than anyone thought. That includes them too." The next morning, news of the alliance between Earth and the Zanari spread rapidly. World leaders held emergency meetings to discuss the implications, while scientists and engineers eagerly studied the data brought back by the mission. Schools began teaching lessons about the void and humanity's role in defeating it, inspiring a new generation to dream bigger and reach further. For Ethan and Lily, life slowly returned to normal, or as close to normal as it could be after saving the galaxy. They spent their days answering emails, attending conferences, and helping coordinate efforts to strengthen ties with the Zanari. Yet no matter how busy things got, they always found time to sit together and reflect on what they'd accomplished. "We're not done yet," Lily said one evening as they watched the sunset from their balcony. "There's still so much to explore, so much to learn." Ethan smiled, looking out at the horizon. "Yeah," he agreed. "But for once, I think we're ready." The journey back to Earth aboard Asterisk, The Aegis asterisk was quieter than the trip out. The void's destruction had left everyone weary, both physically and emotionally. Ethan spent most of his time resting in the medical bay, recovering from the strain of piloting the small vessel through the collapsing entity. Though he tried to downplay his exhaustion, Lily hovered nearby, making sure he ate and drank enough. "You're not invincible, you know," she teased gently, handing him a cup of water. "I could have fooled you," Ethan replied with a weak grin, though his voice still carried a hint of fatigue. He glanced around the room, watching as Zenari medics moved silently between patients. Many of the crew were struggling to recover from the void's mental toll, their usual discipline fractured by lingering fear and doubt. Ethan realized then that the mission hadn't just tested humanity, it had pushed the Zenari to their limits too. Kale visited Ethan later that evening, standing tall in the doorway of the medical bay. His silver skin reflected the soft glow of the lights, but his expression was unusually subdued. "How are you feeling?" he asked, his deep voice calm. "Alive," Ethan said simply. "That's good enough for now." Kale nodded, stepping closer. "Your actions have changed more than you realize. Not only did you save countless lives, but you also reminded us of something we had forgotten: the value of hope." Ethan frowned slightly, unsure how to respond. "Hope isn't much without action," he said after a moment. "It's what you do with it that matters." "True," Kale agreed, "but hope gives purpose to action. Without it, even the strongest will falter." He paused, studying Ethan carefully. "When we return to Earth, I intend to offer your species an alliance, a partnership built on mutual respect. You have proven yourselves worthy." Ethan felt a lump rise in his throat. For years, humanity had been dismissed as insignificant, weak, and irrelevant. Now they were being offered a place among the stars. It was hard to believe, but Kel's words carried weight. "I think people back home will want that," Ethan said finally. "We've always dreamed of reaching beyond our planet. Maybe this is our chance." As the days passed, preparations began for the arrival on Earth. News of humanity's role in defeating the void spread quickly among the crew, sparking conversations between humans and Zenari alike. Joran sought out Ethan one afternoon, curiosity lighting up his alien features. "Tell me about Earth," he asked. "What makes your people so adaptable?" Ethan chuckled, leaning back against the wall. "It's not one thing. We argue, we make mistakes, and sometimes we fail. But no matter what happens, we keep trying. That's who we are." Joran tilted his head thoughtfully. "Perhaps that is why you succeeded where others failed." Meanwhile, Lily worked closely with Ryan and Mia to document everything they'd learned about the void and its defeat. They compiled data, notes, and recordings into a comprehensive report, hoping to share it with Earth's leaders once they returned. "This could change everything," Lily said excitedly during one late-night session. "Imagine what we can accomplish if we combine human creativity with Zenari technology." Ryan grinned, rubbing his tired eyes. "Just don't let it go to your head. You're still the same stubborn linguist I met back in the lab." Lily laughed, swatting at him playfully. "And you're still the same sarcastic decoder who can't take a compliment." As the Aegis asterisk approached Earth's atmosphere, excitement buzzed through the ship. Through the windows, the blue-green planet appeared breathtakingly beautiful, its oceans shimmering under the sunlight. Ethan stood beside Lily, gazing at their home with newfound pride. "We did it," he murmured. "Not just for us, but for everyone." Lily smiled, her eyes shining. "Let's hope they're ready for what comes next." When the ship landed, crowds gathered outside, cheering wildly as the hatch opened. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, and people waved signs celebrating humanity's unexpected triumph. As Ethan stepped onto the platform, flanked by Kale and the rest of the crew, he felt a surge of emotion. Humanity wasn't perfect, but they were resilient. And now, the universe knew it too. The golden light from the device illuminated the void, pushing back its dark tendrils in slow, reluctant waves. Onboard Asterisk, the Aegis Asterisk. The crew watched with bated breath as the swirling mass began to collapse inward, shrinking smaller and smaller. The whispers that had haunted them grew fainter, replaced by a strange silence that felt almost peaceful. For the first time since entering the void's domain, there was hope. But Ethan's fight wasn't over. Inside the small vessel, alarms blared as the gravitational pull of the collapsing void intensified. The controls vibrated violently under his hands, and warning lights flashed across the dashboard. "Hold together," he muttered through gritted teeth, gripping the steering yoke tightly. He knew the window for escape was closing fast. If he didn't get out soon, he'd be trapped forever. Back on Asterisk, the Aegis Asterisk, Lily paced anxiously near the observation deck, her eyes glued to the screen showing Ethan's position. Maya stood beside her, trying to offer reassurance. "He's done the hard part," she said softly. "Now it's just about getting clear." "It's never just that simple," Lily replied, her voice trembling. She couldn't shake the image of her brother disappearing into the void, swallowed whole like so many others before him. Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder, offering silent support, but even he looked uneasy. On the bridge, Cal Vorn monitored the situation closely. His expression remained calm, but his sharp eyes betrayed concern. "Commander Sila," he said sharply, "prepare a retrieval team. If Cole survives the initial blast radius, we must bring him aboard immediately." Sila nodded, though her usual stoicism faltered slightly. Despite her earlier disdain for humans, she couldn't deny what Ethan had accomplished, or the bravery it took to face the void head-on. "Understood," she replied, turning to issue orders. Inside the void, Ethan fought against the growing forces pulling at his ship. The device had destabilized the entity, but its collapse created a massive shockwave that threatened to drag everything nearby into oblivion. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he pushed the engines to their limit, weaving through debris and distortions in space. Each second felt like an eternity, the weight of failure pressing heavily on his chest. "You can do this," he told himself, repeating the words like a mantra. Memories of Earth flooded his mind. His sister's laugh, the hum of New Chicago's streets, the endless sky filled with stars. These thoughts fueled his determination, giving him the strength to keep going when every instinct screamed to give up. Finally, after what felt like hours, Ethan broke free of the void's grip. The small ship shot forward, hurtling toward Asterisk, the Aegis Asterisk, as the last remnants of the void imploded behind him. Cheers erupted on the bridge as the crew watched his battered vessel streak across the monitor. Lily let out a sob of relief, covering her mouth with her hands. Cale wasted no time. "Lock onto his coordinates and initiate docking procedures," he commanded. Moments later, Ethan's ship connected with Asterisk, the Aegis Asterisk, and the airlock hissed open. When Ethan stepped out, pale and exhausted but alive, the entire crew erupted into applause. Even Sila offered a rare nod of respect, acknowledging his sacrifice. Lily ran to him, throwing her arms around him tightly. "You did it," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You saved us all." Ethan managed a weak smile, leaning on her for support. "We did it," he corrected. "Humanity did." As the crew celebrated, Cale approached Ethan, his towering frame casting a shadow over the weary human. "Your actions today have changed everything," he said solemnly. "Not only have you saved the Zenari Empire, but you've also proven that humanity is far stronger than anyone believed." Ethan met his gaze, still struggling to process what had happened. "We're not perfect," he admitted, "but maybe being flawed is what makes us strong." Cale studied him for a moment, then inclined his head. "Perhaps it is. You have earned our respect and our gratitude." For the first time in history, humanity stood side by side with one of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations, united not by technology or power, but by courage and resilience. And as Asterisk, the Aegis Asterisk, turned back toward Earth, Ethan knew the universe would never see them the same way again. The closer asterisk, the Aegis asterisk, came to the void, the more its presence weighed on everyone aboard. The swirling blackness loomed ahead like a living shadow, pulling at the edges of their minds. Even the ship's advanced systems seemed affected, lights flickered, and the hum of the engines grew uneven. The whispers grew louder too, soft, haunting murmurs that seeped into thoughts and twisted emotions. Some Zenari soldiers began to withdraw, their disciplined expressions giving way to blank stares or fits of anger. Others paced restlessly, muttering under their breath. Ethan felt it too, a deep, gnawing sense of dread that made him question everything. What if they failed? What if humanity wasn't strong enough after all? But every time those doubts crept in, he remembered Lily's words about courage and resilience. He glanced over at her as she worked with Mia and Ryan, huddled around a glowing console in the lab. Her focus was unwavering, her hands steadied as she adjusted settings on the device, meant to counteract the void. Seeing her determination gave Ethan the strength to push back against the fear. Lily had been right. The void fed on despair. It didn't just destroy matter, it crushed hope, leaving behind emptiness. That realization only strengthened her resolve to fight back using emotion as a weapon. If we can fill the space with something stronger than fear, she explained during one briefing, we might be able to weaken it. Cale listened intently, his silver skin reflecting the dim light of the room. And you believe this? Emotional frequency will work? He asked, skepticism evident in his voice. It's our best shot, Mia interjected. We've programmed the device to emit waves tied to positive human emotions. Courage, hope, resilience. If the void thrives on negativity, then overwhelming it with positivity could destabilize it. Scylla scoffed, crossing her arms. Emotions are unpredictable. How can we trust such a plan? Because logic alone hasn't stopped the void, Ethan said firmly, surprising even himself with his boldness. Sometimes you need chaos to beat order. Sometimes you need heart. To everyone's surprise, Cale nodded. Prepare the device, he ordered. We approached the edge of the void within hours. As the ship drew nearer, the crew prepared for what lay ahead. Ethan volunteered to pilot the smaller vessel carrying the device into the void's core. His experience with Earth's rudimentary flight simulators, combined with his quick thinking, made him the best candidate. Though Lily protested, knowing the risks, she couldn't deny that her brother was the right choice. Just promise me you'll come back, she said, her voice trembling. I'll do my best, Ethan replied with a small smile. Besides, someone has to tell the story when this is over. Before entering the void, the team conducted final tests on the device. Joran assisted, marveling at how the humans had managed to combine their primitive technology with Zenari advancements. It shouldn't work, he admitted, shaking his head. But it does. When the moment came, Ethan climbed into the cockpit of the smaller ship, gripping the controls tightly. The plan was simple yet dangerous. Navigate through the chaotic gravitational pull of the void, deploy the device at its center, and escape before being consumed. As the countdown began, Ethan took a deep breath, focusing on the faces of those waiting for him. Lily, Mia, Ryan, and even Cale. They were counting on him. The ship launched, hurtling toward the swirling darkness. Inside, the whispers grew deafening, clawing at Ethan's mind. Images flashed before his eyes. Earth burning, Lily crying, the stars fading one by one. But he fought back, replaying memories of laughter, kindness, and triumph. Each thought became a shield, pushing away the void's influence. Reaching the core, Ethan activated the device. Waves of golden light pulsed outward, filling the void with warmth and hope. For a moment, the darkness wavered, retreating slightly. Encouraged, Ethan pushed the device to its limits, unleashing a flood of emotion so powerful it lit up the surrounding area like a second sun. Back on Asterisk, the Aegis Asterisk, the crew watched in awe as the void began to shrink. Lily clasped her hands together, tears streaming down her face. "He did it," she whispered. But the battle wasn't over yet, not until Ethan returned. The journey aboard the Zenari warship, the Aegis Asterisk, was unlike anything Ethan and Lily had ever experienced. The ship moved with a quiet grace, cutting through the vastness of space like a blade slicing water. Outside the windows, stars streaked past in long, glowing trails, creating an endless light show that left Ethan both awestruck and uneasy. He often found himself staring out at the infinite expanse, wondering what awaited them at the edge of the void. Would they return home? Or would this mission consume them entirely? Life on the ship was a mix of wonder and tension. The Zenari crew treated Ethan and Lily with a cautious respect, though not everyone was happy about their presence. Commander Scylla continued to voice her doubts during briefings, questioning whether humans were truly capable of contributing anything meaningful. "They are unpredictable," she said one day, her sharp eyes narrowing as she glanced at Ethan. "We cannot afford mistakes." Ethan clenched his fists but held his tongue. He knew Scylla's words carried truth. Humans weren't perfect, but he also believed their imperfections were strengths. It was their ability to adapt, to think outside the box, that made them valuable. Still, he couldn't help feeling small under her critical gaze. Lily, on the other hand, thrived in the alien environment. She spent hours working alongside Ryan and Joran, analyzing data and brainstorming ideas for countering the void. Her theory about using emotions as a weapon gained traction, and the team began developing ways to implement it. Maya Torres, a brilliant physicist from Earth who had been recruited for the mission, joined their efforts, bringing fresh insights into energy manipulation. Together, they designed a device capable of emitting frequencies tied to human emotions like courage and resilience. Ethan focused on practical tasks, training with Zenari weapons and learning how to operate the ship's systems. At first, he struggled to keep up. The technology was far beyond anything he'd encountered before, but he quickly discovered that his unorthodox problem-solving skills earned him grudging admiration from some of the crew. During one exercise, he improvised a solution to disable a simulated enemy drone, earning a rare nod of approval from Scylla. "Perhaps there is merit in chaos after all," she admitted, though her tone remained cold. As the days passed, Ethan and Lily grew closer to the Zenari, forming unexpected bonds. Joran, once skeptical of humanity, became fascinated by their creativity and resourcefulness. He often asked Ethan questions about Earth's history, marveling at how humans had overcome so many challenges. "You rebuild even when everything falls apart," Joran said one evening. "That takes strength." "It's not always easy," Ethan replied with a shrug. "Sometimes we fail, but we don't give up." Calvorn observed these interactions with quiet interest. Though he rarely spoke to Ethan and Lily directly, his faith in their abilities seemed to grow. During a private conversation, he told Lily, "Your species reminds me of the Zenari before we built our empire. We were explorers then, willing to take risks. Over time, we became rigid, focused only on order and efficiency. Perhaps we lost something along the way." The ship eventually reached the outer edges of the void, and the mood shifted dramatically. The once bright interior of the Aegis Asterisk dimmed as if the ship itself sensed the danger ahead. Through the windows, the void appeared as a swirling mass of blackness, consuming everything in its path. Its presence was suffocating, and strange whispers filled the air. Soft, maddening voices that seemed to echo inside Ethan's mind. Many Zenari soldiers reacted poorly, their disciplined demeanor cracking under the weight of despair. But Ethan refused to let fear take hold. He thought of the children playing near the fountain back in New Chicago, of the ball handed back with a smile. Humanity wasn't defined by perfection or power. It was defined by hope. And hope, he realized, might just be the key to defeating the void. The inside of the Zenari ship was unlike anything Ethan and Lily had ever seen. The walls shimmered with a soft, pulsing light, as if the vessel itself were alive. Strange symbols floated in the air, shifting and rearranging like a language written in motion. Cal Vorn stood at the center of the room, his tall frame towering over the humans. His silver skin reflected the glow of the ship's interior, and his piercing eyes seemed to look straight through them. "You will explain what you know," Cale said, his voice calm but firm. "Time is not on our side." Ethan glanced at Lily, unsure where to start. She stepped forward, holding her tablet tightly. "We've been studying your transmissions," she began. "From what we can tell, this void isn't just a physical threat. It's something more, something that affects minds." Cal's expression didn't change, but Ethan thought he saw a flicker of surprise in the alien's eyes. "You are perceptive," Cale admitted. "The void consumes not only matter but also hope. Those who face it often succumb to despair before they are destroyed." Lily nodded, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "That's why you came to us. You think humanity's adaptability, our ability to find solutions even when things seem impossible, might be useful against it." Cale tilted his head slightly, studying her. "Your species has survived countless challenges, wars, plagues, environmental collapse. Each time, you have endured. That resilience is rare among advanced civilizations." Ethan crossed his arms, still skeptical. "If we're so great, why did you insult us? Why treat us like we're nothing?" "It was a test," Cale replied without hesitation. "To see how you would respond. Would you lash out, retreat into denial, or would you rise above it?" He paused, his gaze shifting between the siblings. "You rose above it." Ethan wanted to argue, to point out how unfair the whole thing was, but he couldn't deny the truth in Cal's words. Humanity had always found ways to keep moving forward, no matter the odds. Maybe that was their strength, not perfection, but persistence. As the ship traveled across galaxies, Ethan and Lily met the rest of the crew. There was Commander Sila, a fierce Zenari warrior who clearly resented having humans aboard, and Technician Joran, who seemed fascinated by Earth's technology. The tension between the Zenari and the humans was palpable, but there were moments of curiosity too. During one training session, Ethan demonstrated how to modify a broken piece of equipment using spare parts. Joran watched intently, asking questions about Earth's approach to problem-solving. "You rely on improvisation," Joran observed. "Our methods are precise, calculated. Yours are chaotic." "Chaotic works," Ethan shot back with a grin. "Sometimes chaos is exactly what you need." Despite the progress, not everyone was convinced. Commander Sila made her feelings clear during a briefing. "These humans are fragile," she told Cal. "They lack discipline. How can we trust them with something this important?" "They have proven themselves capable," Cal replied evenly. "And they bring something we lack: creativity. If we are to survive, we must embrace new ideas, even if they come from unexpected sources." Lily spent most of her time analyzing data about the void, working alongside Ryan, who had been brought aboard after proving his value decoding alien messages. Together, they pieced together fragments of information, trying to understand the entity's weaknesses. One night, while reviewing old Earth history, Lily had an idea. "What if the void feeds on fear?" she suggested during a meeting. "If we can counteract that, fill the space with courage or hope, it might weaken it." The room fell silent. Even Sila looked intrigued. "An emotional weapon," Cale mused. "It is unconventional, but worth considering." Ethan felt a spark of pride hearing his sister's idea taken seriously. For years, humanity had been dismissed as irrelevant, but now their unique qualities were being recognized. As the ship hurtled toward the edge of the void, Ethan realized something important. The universe might have called them weak, but weakness wasn't always a flaw. Sometimes, it was just another word for potential waiting to be unlocked. Lily stayed up late into the night, her fingers flying over the tablet screen as she pieced together more of the encrypted Zenari messages. The apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of her device and the occasional distant rumble of hovercars outside. Ethan had gone to bed hours ago, but sleep eluded her. Something about the tone of the transmissions made her uneasy. It wasn't just fear, it was desperation. The kind of urgency that came when everything was falling apart. By morning, she had uncovered fragments of a larger picture. The Zenari Empire, once considered unshakable, was facing something catastrophic. A threat so immense it had driven them to Earth, a planet they openly mocked. Lily shared her findings with Ryan, a fellow linguist who often helped her decode alien languages. Together, they worked in a small lab on the outskirts of New Chicago, surrounded by stacks of papers and blinking monitors. "This doesn't make sense," Ryan said, leaning back in his chair. "Why would they come here if they're in trouble? We don't have anything they need." "Maybe we do," Lily replied thoughtfully. She pointed to a line of text on the screen. "This part mentions adaptability and creativity. That sounds like us. Human traits. What if they're not just looking down on us? What if they're curious?" Ryan frowned. "Curious enough to insult us on live TV? I don't buy it." "I'm not saying they respect us," Lily said. "But think about it. They're scared. Whatever this threat is, it's beyond their control. And maybe, just maybe, they see something in us that could help." Ethan joined them later that day, carrying coffee and a skeptical expression. "You really think they'd turn to us for help?" he asked after hearing Lily's theory. "After everything they said." "They didn't exactly ask nicely," Lily admitted. "But actions speak louder than words. Why else would they bother coming here at all?" While the siblings debated, strange things began happening around the city. Reports surfaced of unidentified drones hovering near power plants and research facilities. One of these sites was where Ethan worked, testing experimental fusion reactors. He noticed the drones too, sleek and silent, watching from a distance. At first, he dismissed them as routine surveillance, but then he saw one up close. Its surface shimmered with an otherworldly glow, a design unlike anything human-made. "Someone's interested in our tech," Ethan told Lily when he got home. "I don't think it's coincidence." The next evening, the Zenari returned. This time, they didn't address the entire planet. Instead, their ships descended directly over New Chicago, targeting specific locations, including Ethan and Lily's apartment building. Alarms blared as people scrambled for cover, but the aliens didn't attack. Instead, Calvorn himself appeared on a holographic display projected into the sky. "Humans," his deep voice echoed. "We underestimated you. Your adaptability, your ingenuity. These are qualities we require. Come forward, Ethan Cole and Lily Cole. Your assistance is needed." Ethan froze, staring at the towering image of the Zenari leader. Beside him, Lily gripped his arm tightly. "What did we get ourselves into?" she whispered. Before they could react, a smaller ship descended, its door sliding open to reveal two Zenari soldiers. They gestured for Ethan and Lily to follow. With no other choice, the siblings stepped inside, leaving behind everything familiar. As the ship lifted off, Ethan glanced out the window at the shrinking city below. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of hope, not because he believed in the Zenari, but because he believed in humanity's ability to rise above even the harshest judgments. Inside the ship, Cale explained the situation. The Zenari Empire was under siege by an ancient force known only as the Void. It consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but emptiness in its wake. Desperate for survival, the Zenari had turned to Earth, hoping humanity's unique strengths might hold the key to defeating it. Ethan listened carefully, his mind racing with possibilities. If the Zenari were truly counting on humans, then maybe they weren't as weak as everyone thought. Maybe they were stronger than anyone, including themselves, had ever imagined. Ethan Cole stared out of the cracked window of his small apartment in New Chicago. The city skyline was a mix of towering alien structures and crumbling human buildings, a reminder of how far humanity had fallen in the eyes of the galaxy. He sighed and leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. It wasn't just the noise from the streets below or the flickering light above him that bothered him. It was the constant feeling of being less than. Less than the Zenari with their sleek ships and glowing cities. Less than the Krillians with their advanced medicine. Less than everyone else out there among the stars. His sister, Lily, walked into the room holding a tablet. Her blonde hair was tied back, and her green eyes sparkled with determination. "You've been quiet all day," she said, sitting across from him. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," Ethan muttered, though he knew she wouldn't buy it. Lily always saw through him. "It's what they said today, isn't it?" she asked softly. Earlier that morning, a delegation from the Zenari Empire had arrived on Earth for a rare visit. Their leader, a tall, silver-skinned figure named Cal Vorn, had given a speech broadcast live across the planet. In cold, blunt words, he had called humanity weak, fragile, and irrelevant. To make matters worse, no one on Earth seemed surprised. They were used to being looked down on. Ethan didn't answer right away. Instead, he picked up a small metal gadget from the table, a prototype fusion reactor he'd been working on for months. It was supposed to revolutionize energy production, but so far it only sputtered and sparked when turned on. "Maybe they're right," he finally said. "Look at us. We can't even keep our own planet running smoothly, let alone compete with them." Lily frowned. "That's not fair. You know we've made progress. People are working hard. Scientists, engineers, everyone." "Yeah, sure," Ethan replied, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "But according to them, all our work means nothing. We're still the weakest link in the galactic chain." Before Lily could respond, her tablet beeped. She glanced at the screen and gasped. "Ethan, look at this." She turned the device toward him. On the screen was a series of encrypted messages intercepted during the Zenari broadcast. As a linguist specializing in alien languages, Lily had been analyzing the transmission for hours. What she found shocked both of them. "They weren't just insulting us," she explained. "They were testing us. These messages mention something big, an emergency, something they're afraid of." "Afraid?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "The mighty Zenari. Afraid of what?" "I don't know yet," Lily admitted. "But whatever it is, it's bad enough that they came here, even if they acted like they didn't want to. And I think they were trying to see if we'd react, to see if we were worth trusting." Ethan shook his head. "Why would they care about us? We're nothing to them." "Maybe," Lily said thoughtfully, "or maybe we're more important than we realize." Later that night, Ethan couldn't shake off the conversation. He wandered outside, walking aimlessly through the crowded streets. Everywhere he looked, people went about their lives as if nothing had changed. But something felt different. As he passed by a group of children playing near a fountain, one of them accidentally kicked a ball into a puddle. Without hesitation, another child ran over, grabbed the ball, and handed it back with a smile. Ethan paused, watching the simple act of kindness. For some reason, it stuck with him. Back home, he sat down at his desk and stared at the broken prototype. Maybe humanity wasn't perfect. Maybe they were flawed, messy, and far behind the rest of the universe. But they had something others didn't, something that couldn't be measured in technology or strength. He didn't know what it meant yet, but deep down, he felt certain it mattered. More than anyone realized.